Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be going through my construction process of making myself some bloomers. And you'll ask also, why are you trying to wear bloomers in the year of our Lord 2021? Well, as we know, I am going on a history-bounding, environmentally friendly revamp of my wardrobe. I'm trying to incorporate more vintage-inspired pieces, and particularly pieces that are made out of natural fibers so that my clothing can have the least impact on the environment as possible. And bloomers are going to be a part of that because I have exceptionally thick thighs, which means I suffer from what is colloquially known as chub rub, where the insides of your thighs rub together and chafe, and it's very uncomfortable. And previous to this, when I was dressing more in modern clothes, I would wear a pair of bike shorts underneath all of my dresses. I have this pair and I have the same ones in black, and they're lovely. They're very comfortable. They're just active wear. But the problem with these specific ones is that the waistband is very thick, and it creates a very thick ridge under dresses, which when I was wearing modern clothes wasn't really an issue because I wasn't wearing a corset, but now I'm wearing a corset. This is my mock-up corset video coming soon. But the way that it hits like right here on my belly and creates this awful ridge, which is just not cute. So I will be making myself some more streamline bloomers. I have made the pattern myself. I drafted the yoke and the legs from drafting instructions that I got from my professor in college. And she's working on publishing a book, so I can't share them with you. I'm very sorry. But if you draft a basic pencil skirt and then turn that into a pants pattern, that's how I got this pattern. So the yoke currently, as it stands for the mock-up, is just a basic pencil skirt that I closed the dart on to get it to be a flat yoke. And we can see there's a line here on the side seam. The outside line this would be the yoke back, and the shorter line is the yoke front. I just didn't want to make two pieces of paper because why waste paper? And then I have the little shorts part. This is the back, and the front looks similar, just smaller. And yeah, these are not really going to be any sort of frilly, exciting bloomers. I just need a pair of shorts to go on underneath all of my dresses as I'm walking around in the summer. Because in the winter, and in the fall, and in the spring, because it's cold in Minnesota, I wear tights under my dresses, so I don't have this issue in those seasons. But when it's summer and I want to go for a walk outside, I need to wear something under my dress. Therefore, bloomers. I have chosen to make my bloomers out of two different materials. The yoke will be made out of this white lyocell, which is a type of rayon. I got it at Joann's. I'll put a link in the description. And it will be made out of 2 layers of this, which we'll get into later in the construction. The linen will be for the shorts. I chose the lyocell for the yoke because it's very thin, which means it will add less bulk to the belly area, which is what I'm going for. And the shorts I decided to make out of linen because linen is very durable. It's also very breathable, which is what you want when you have a high action area like the inside of your thighs that brush together all the time. It will cut down on the sweating, and it will also stand up to the test of time. I also purchased this linen at Joann's. I will put a link in the description, of course. So, I have made a mock-up out of muslin, and now we will head to my bathroom and try on the mock-up. Alright, so here we are in my bathroom, and I've got the mock-up on, and I've done my pinning, and now I'm going to explain to you what I've done. So, first of all, hopefully you can see this. The seam where the yoke is way too low. I'm going to move it up to be closer to where my corset line is hitting, which is also should be around the same spot where my petticoat yoke ends. Just because it gives a nice smooth line down to here, but then I'll have more crotch seam, which will hopefully allow me more mobility. I have also pinned a new side seam on the yoke here on the seam allowance, taking the waist in a little bit, letting out through the hip. As we can see, I will be raising the front waistline a little bit. I'll be raising it about 1 inch. And I will also be taking a little bit off of the center front, which will get added back in at the bottom down here, which I will explain when I alter my pattern. But the back, I think, looks pretty okay. Yeah, I mean, the back is fine. I might lower it just a little bit in the back because I don't want this to sit at my waistline. I want it to sit just below my waistline so that it doesn't conflict with my petticoat and so I don't gain any more bulk around the waist because we don't need that. And you can see here, and if you can't, I will explain it better in when we go back to my sewing room. I have drawn a pink line here that I will be taking some off of the height of the side seam on the waist because it is exceptionally high. Other than that, I think it fits well, and as I am letting this out at the side seam for the yoke, I will also carry that into the leg because there's enough body in the leg, but it doesn't, it could use a little more ease because ease is fun. I also sat, which went fine. Yeah, it also is just, it feels strange because I'm wearing tights underneath this for the purposes of filming, which will not be there when I'm actually wearing this. But I actually, did try this on yesterday when I built this, and I wasn't wearing any tights. I was just wearing my underwear and my corset, and it felt fine to walk around. And I think the length is pretty good. I gave myself a 6-inch inseam, so yeah. So now we'll go talk about the pattern alterations that need to happen. Alright, so I have finished altering my pattern and now I'm going to go through the alterations with you. For the front yoke, I raised the waistline about 7/8 of an inch, I think. I ended up doing rather than a full inch because I thought that it would be a more attractive line. I altered the side seam based on what I had pinned out in the fitting. I altered the angle of the front based on what I had pinned out in the fitting, and I shortened it to be 6 inches long. I did most of the same things like that on the back, altering the side seam, altering the top waistline to be more in accordance with where I want it, and shortening it to be 6 inches long. For the shorts patterns, I raised both front and back. I raised them 3 inches to coordinate with the shortening 3 inches that I did to the yoke. And I also ended up adding some to the side seam to coordinate with the new line that got let out down here. Just truing up the pattern so that it'll have a little bit more room in the leg, nothing too drastic though. So in terms of construction things that I will be considering when preparing to cut, obviously I need a way to get into this and it doesn't have a waistband. I will be cutting 2 layers of the lyocell, which will serve as a yoke, and like there will be the outside and the inside, which will encase the seam all the way around so I don't have to have any serging where the yoke joins the shorts, which we'll get into when I start building things. And it will have a side opening with buttons, which means when I am cutting I need to add enough seam allowance to have the buttons have some room to underlap. And I think it'll be a left side opening because my petticoat opens on the right and I like to alternate my sides to balance out the amount of bulk that I have around my hips. So yeah, I'll get to cutting. Oh, I did want to say I have pre-washed my materials, both the lyocell and the linen. I washed them both with warm water and put them in a very hot dryer. And I did this because it is always good practice when you are wanting to wash something in the future that you pre-wash your fabric to get any shrink out of it, so that you don't have to make a beautiful thing and then put it in the wash and have it shrink on you, because that's no fun. So yes, I've pre-washed my fabric and I have pressed my fabric, and now I will get to cutting. I have finished cutting my pieces, and now I'm going to tell you what my next step will be. I've got the, this is the back of the shorts, but this will be true of both the front and the back. I will be serging separately from each other every side except for the top that's going into the waistline, because I will show you a special method that I'm going to use to finish that seam. As of right now, I am not going to serge the side seams of the yoke that will be going on my hip, because they have 2 layers, they will get bagged out, and so all of the raw seams should be on the inside. I think I have to, I'm still working out how I'm going to make a placket to do buttons and buttonholes, but as of right now, I'm not going to serge the side seams. The side seams would be the only thing that would be serged, because since there's 2 pieces, I'm going to sew them together. So the top waistline will be finished, and then I will also be sewing them and encasing all of the raw edges of the seam that connects to the top to this. So that's why I'm not serging this either. So I'll figure out and let you know later if I end up serging the side seams. All right, you can't see my face, but because I'm about to explain the sewing that I have done, I have serged the leg pieces as promised, and I have also sewn the crotch seams on both the front and the back, and I have done the right side seam of the shorts, and on the yokes, I have done the right side seam on both the inside and the outside pieces, and I have joined them at the waist, and I have done some understitching, which I hope you can see, and if not, just trust me, it's there, to help keep things looking nice and pretty. So now I am about to introduce you to how I am going to sew these together without involving serging the yoke seam that connects it to the shorts, which is what I call the burrito method, which is where I am going to right sides
together for the outside. I'm taking the outside of the yolk, the part that will be seen on the outside, and pinning it right sides together to the shorts. I have pinned the yolk and the shorts right sides together, the yolk being the outside of the yolk, not the facing. And now I'm going to roll up the linen from the hem to this seam and then pin the right side of the yoke facing to the wrong side of the shorts along this whole line, and then this is how I will put it through the machine and encase this raw seam. Now that this whole seam is done, I can pull the linen out from in between the yoke pieces, and eventually I will get a fully encased raw seam. So now all of my seam allowance is stuck in the middle here, which just makes it nice and clean, and I didn't have to serge anything, which doesn't add any extra bulk. So now I will take this over to the iron and get it nice and flat, and then figure out how I'm going to do the left side seam and the button closures. Right, so I have pressed the yoke seam, joining it with the shorts, pressed it nice and flat, and now to deal with the left side seam that I had not yet figured out how to build, I have seamed the shorts part closed using my inch seam allowance, and now what I'm going to do is fold in the raw edges of the yoke pieces towards each other. I'm going to fold them in about 1/4 inch and machine stitch them just to keep them secure. And I will do the same thing on the back, but in addition on the back, I will be removing the inch of stitching that is keeping the yoke and the shorts together so that this extension can free float and go towards the front, but the seam allowance on the shorts can lay flat. And after that is done, I will meet back up with you to talk about doing the buttons and the buttonholes. I also, before I forget, I have done the inseam, which was uneventful and not glamorous, so I didn't tell you about it, but I've done it, and eventually I will hem it up 3/4 inch, and that will be what happens to the hem. But yeah, I will meet back up with you when I'm ready to do buttons and buttonholes. Surprise, I went ahead and did the buttonholes and buttons without you. But I can show you what I did. These are the buttonholes. So I have 3 of them. They're spaced 2 inches apart, roughly. And I didn't add any interfacing to either the buttons or the buttonholes, but you can see that I have tacked back the 1 inch, well, it's like roughly 3/4 inch of seam allowance for the yoke. That got tacked back, and so now the buttonholes go through 4 layers of fabric. We can also see my adorable buttons that are little flowers, which are super cute. If, as I am wearing these about in the world, I feel that in the future, if I remake them, I will need to add interfacing. I will take that under advisement when I do so. But yeah, I also, of course, hemmed the legs up 3/4 inch. And I also went ahead and added some zigzag reinforcement right at this opening of the yoke, because I can get them over my hips, and over my butt, it's a little bit of a fight. Like if I were getting dressed in a quick change, these would rip instantly and I would hate them. But because I get dressed fairly slowly in the morning usually, it will be okay. It will be fine. So yeah, and now I will try them on for you. And here are my finished bloomers. I think they're very cute, they're very comfortable, and I love how they fit around the waist. They don't add any bulk. They don't add any bulk in the back either. Yeah, they're exactly what I wanted them to be, and they're
no frills except for the cute buttons. But yeah, I think they will suit me well, and hopefully I'll be able to make another pair so that I can have a couple in rotation. Please like this video to let me know you enjoyed your time here, subscribe to my channel so you never miss another video, and leave me a comment down below letting me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all on the flip-flop.